All right, great. So this status conference is called to order. Good afternoon, I should say. Thank you everyone for being here today. I'm Commissioner Colin Yost. I'm joined by Commissioner Kauai and PUC staff. And I don't think that Chair Asuncion has joined. Can you confirm that, Andrew?
I don't believe I see Chair Asuncion on the call.
Okay, Chair Asuncion is attending a DCCA disaster operations training today, so he may be able to join periodically, but he might be in and out of the conference. Commissioner Kauai and I will switch off at different times of this conference depending on the topic. As I said before, today's status conference is being recorded. A copy of the recording will be made available on the Commission's YouTube channel. The purpose of today's status conference is for the Commission to provide the parties with an update on the next steps for this docket 2019-0323, as well as future DER-related proceedings, and to receive updates on potential impacts of H.R. 1, the so-called One Big Beautiful Bill Act, or OBBB, on DERs in Hawaii, as well as status of discussions about modifications to the NEM Plus program that have been occurring between the parties outside of commission conferences. More specifically, the Commission's objectives today are to elaborate on the Commission's ongoing investigation into DER policy in Hawaii, which includes our intent to close the current docket and also to provide general guidance on the Commission's plans to open more focused proceedings to continue developing DER policies in Hawaii and programs consistent with the Commission's 2024 inclinations, the Governor's Executive Order 25-01, and Act 266, also known as SB 589. Also today, we want to allow the parties the opportunity to share their initial reactions and plans regarding the OBBB, including any near-term impacts they are anticipating. And we want to receive an update from the parties on the status of their discussions regarding potential changes to the Net Energy Metering Plus or NEM Plus tariff. And we will also explain with the closure of the long-standing ongoing DER docket how we will continue to facilitate the review and resolution of any concerns the parties may have relating to DER policies and programs. So with that, I will turn it over to Commissioner Kauai to discuss next steps for DER proceedings.
Good afternoon, everyone. The Commission opened this proceeding 6 years ago to investigate technical, economic, and policy issues associated with DERs and rate design as they pertain to Hawaiian electric companies. The work was divided into 3 separate tracks that covered an ambitious slate of topics. The Commission and the parties have worked extensively and diligently to establish sound policies and successful programs along the 3 tracks. Work in the ARD track culminated in the establishment of the ARD framework concluded in the completion of the ARD TOU study. Work in the DPS program track resulted in the establishment of the SMART DER, BYOD, and BYOD Plus programs and a transition plan for interim programs. And work in the technical track has yielded agreement of the parties on several technical matters to improve and support DER growth and integration. At this time, the Commission finds that the objectives identified when opening this proceeding have been largely accomplished and that new, more complex issues have emerged, reflecting the evolution of DER policy in Hawaii. In order to address these issues and to develop and evolve new DER policy to reflect these issues, it is appropriate to close out the current dockets, which are limited in scope, and develop a new record to form new policy. Accordingly, the Commission concludes that the time is ripe to close the current investigation which began in 2019, and to prepare to transition to new investigations or other proceedings which will address emerging issues currently facing DERs in Hawaii. As discussed in recent orders regarding ARD and program tracks following closure of this proceeding, the Commission intends to open separate, more focused proceedings to comply with the provisions of Act 266 or Senate Bill 589 and continue developing DER policies and programs consistent with the Commission's 2024 inclinations and Executive Order Number 25-01. This commission has initiated a research project to inform next steps in potentially opening a new proceeding to investigate the development of virtual power plants or VPPs and other dispatchable DER programs. As disclosed in a letter filed yesterday, interviews have already been conducted with representatives from some docket parties. Until such new proceedings are open, the Commission will continue to monitor and modify, as needed, existing DER programs and policies in accordance with processes established in prior orders and/or on an ad hoc basis when appropriate. To the extent urgent action is needed in the interim, the Commission clarifies that the parties may file non-docketed requests, which the Commission will review and determine the appropriate course of action, such as addressing as a separate matter, reopening this docket for limited purposes, or consolidating with any other ongoing related matters. Regarding any such request, the parties should collaborate with each other to develop stipulations or joint proposals to facilitate a streamlined and expedited review. The order on closing this docket will contain instructions on how to do that. Commissioner Yost.
Thank you. Sorry, it took me a moment to unmute there. Thank you, Commissioner Kawai. The Commission understands, I'd like to move now to OBBB impacts. Now, we understand that the passage of the OBBB has obvious implications for Hawaii, and we would like to open it up to the parties to discuss what has already been discussed among the parties outside of these proceedings relating to how best to address these impacts. We received some slides from HECO, the Hawaiian Electric Companies. We didn't receive anything from the DER parties or anyone else, but what's the preference of the parties in terms of who should start this conversation? Should we have HECO go first and show its slide, or should the DER parties go first and explain things from their perspective?
Thanks, Commissioner Yost. I'm actually okay if the DER parties go first. I think that would set probably a good foundation, and then we can tack on after that.
Okay, thank you, Lonnie. DER parties, could you go ahead and start, if that's all right with you, and start by introducing yourselves?
Thanks, Commissioner Yost, and thanks everyone for this presentation. I'm Rocky Mold. I'm the Executive Director of the Hawaii Solar Energy Association. Here with us is Isaac Moriwake from Earth Justice, Baron Argetsinger representing the Hawaii PV Coalition. Together, we are the DER parties, and I believe Steve Rimsha for HPBC as well. And is there anyone, and I noticed Brian Gold from HSEA joined. I think Chris DeBone from HSEA is also joining. Is Mark Duda from HPVC joining? I believe he is on. I didn't see for sure though. That's most of the team. If I missed anyone, please chime in. So I have some slides I'd like to share if possible. I'll try sharing them now if that's okay. We will file these very soon after this meeting, so everyone can have them publicly. But would it be okay to share some slides?
Yes, Andrew, can you facilitate that?
He has presenter status, Commissioner.
Great. Okay. I am looking for, there we go. Okay. Can you guys see my slides? Am I sharing my slides yet?
Yes, you are, Rocky.
Okay.
We can see them.
Great, thanks. Yeah, clearly the HR1, we think HR1 is going to have a very big impact on the industry here in Hawaii and also nationally. Just to cut to the chase, I mean, we see a rapid wind down of the investment tax credit and the production tax credits for wind and solar. The foreign entities of concern or prohibited, foreign assistance entities and domestic content requirements and other related provisions, they're going to drive up the cost of installations and of equipment in Hawaii. And also, we have tariffs that we have to face are dealing with as well. So while we're still kind of assessing what the impacts are going to be, we're already feeling impacts, and we see them, accelerating. These changes are going to have immediate and lasting effects on the supply chain in the near term and the longer term. And it's our belief that the Commission can take immediate and targeted actions now to insulate Hawaii consumers and economy from the worst of these impacts and to ensure we remain on track to meet our energy, climate, affordability, and other public policy goals. All of these rely on a healthy, clean energy market. We have, in the very near term, after 2025, so on 12/31/2025, the residential 25D section 25D tax credit is ending, and so we think there's a rush to get customers in residential customers signed up, right? Over the next near term, very immediate deadline is July 4th, 2026. That is the date by which commercial tax credits need to be, construction needs to begin on commercial projects to claim the commercial tax credit at that point. Leasing companies leases are eligible for the commercial tax credit. Leasing companies. So we also see that as a pending cliff. And then finally, those any of those projects that try to safe harbor by July 4th, 2026, they have to be placed in service. If they don't hit that target, projects have to be placed in service by the end of 2027. If they do hit that safe harbor target, they're supposed to get 4 years, right, to safe harbor if they do 5% of construction. However, on July 7th, 3 days after the signing of HR1 and passage of HR1, President Trump issued an executive order basically guiding the IRS, Treasury, and the Interior departments to clamp down and to take a more stringent view on that. So we think there's a potential and likelihood that those safe harbor rules are going to become more stringent. And not only that, the foreign entities of concern rules that I mentioned, I mean, in some ways, like, the uncertainty caused by that is wreaking its own havoc on our supply chain and on the certainty with which companies and installers can understand them to be eligible for the credit. So projects are going to, so the business community is out there right now, not sure if they start a project, if they're going to get the equipment on time, what that equipment's going to ultimately cost, and whether they're going to whether those safe harbor rules are going to change and they're no longer going to be eligible for the credit. So all that means is like an immediate 30% increase in costs right off the bat. So we see this, it's really going to impact how Hawaii is going to be able to meet its renewable energy goals, and it's going to change how we go about doing it. And so we've reached out to HECO, we've reached out to the City and County of Honolulu Department of Planning and Permitting, we've reached out to other stakeholders, and here we're reaching out to you all in this meeting to seek assistance in helping mitigate some of these problems. And some of this is very near term. Some of it is both near term and over the not immediate term will help, because we're going to have an increase in costs, right? And so some of what we're offering is a way to help mitigate that cost increase. And so on my next slide, we've thought of 5 immediate actions that we'd like to propose and put forward for consideration. And we think the precedent for this is the response to the COVID pandemic and the response to the capacity shortfalls on Oahu and Maui that led to battery bonus. We think there's precedent for taking sort of an emergency urgent stance here. Our first recommendation is to reinstate Quick Connect interconnection pathway. We've already discussed this with HECO, and we appreciate the work that HECO has been doing to think about this and to try to make interconnection more efficient. And so we really appreciate the work they're doing there, and the commitment that they've made to shorten the process, particularly over the near term, with getting conditional approvals through much earlier. So we really appreciate that. We think this reinstatement of Quick Connect, with some modifications from the last time, it is both a near-term and a durable way to lower interconnection costs. But that it really meets that immediate interconnection challenge we're faced with. Obviously, we're talking to the City and County of Honolulu and the Department of Planning and Permitting, and they're open to our ideas and understand the urgency. And they're actually this week they've shut down their entire permitting system to switch over to a new permitting system. And we're going to have to take a look at that early next week and determine whether that's going to be an improvement or not. But we're watching that very closely. So interconnection and permitting, it really is one of those immediate needs. But what we're asking of the PUC is this interconnection, Quick Connect proposal. The next is to adopt the NEM Plus tariff amendments, the stuff that we're going to talk about later in the meeting, and we can get further into that later. Also, we want to clarify the BYOD Plus tariff provisions on the non-performance threshold and clawback mechanism. That's causing some uncertainty in the market right now, and we think it would really help to have more certainty on that. We've already reached out to HECO on this and are in conversations with them on this as well. 4 is we're suggesting a monthly capacity payment of 20 kW, $20 per kW for BYOD Plus to help, again, mitigate some of the cost increases that we're going to see in the market because of the loss of the federal tax credits. And then finally, release a straw proposal for the next version of BYOD, what you guys are calling Hawaii Connected Solutions, but want to make we want to make it clear that we're technology agnostic there, with an accelerated timeline for implementation by January 1st, 2026. So those are some recommendations that we have. I hope we aren't too bold in proposing them at this in this meeting, but that is what we would like to discuss, and that is our recommendation.
All right. Thank you very much, Rocky. Are there any questions, first of all, for the DER parties based on Rocky's presentation? Does anyone on this call have any parties on this call have questions?
Commissioner, I have a question.
Yes, go ahead.
If Rocky or one of the DER parties could better explain the Quick Connect proposal with modifications, I'd appreciate it. What does that look like?
So just off the bat, it's really updating it's really reinstating the quick connect that was put in place during COVID. So it's like, having, sort of a 5-day time clock for completeness review, a 5-day time clock for conditional approval. I know we're in a 3-week, you guys are committing to 3 weeks in the near term here. But another part of our proposal would be to create a cost sharing mechanism to take care of any needs when it comes to, so the DER, so installers would be paying a fee up front to sort of socialize the cost of any impacts on any needs for like, distribution system upgrades that quick interconnection might cause. But of course, so it's really that. Does anyone else from the DR parties want to come in and further expound on this question?
Steve Grimshaw, I believe you've raised your hand. You want to go ahead and unmute and start speaking?
Yeah, hey everyone. I don't have anything else to add, but Lonnie, just and I think this is in line with what we had talked about a few weeks ago, right? There's some immediate opportunities that Hawaiian Electric's looking to take, but then how do we work together to de-risk interconnection, streamline cost, reduce soft costs in the process, and just figure out non-ratepayer cost pathways to enable adoption. So we just really look forward to working on those. And Rocky pointed out some opportunities there. We also talked briefly on our last meeting about getting together with, I believe it's the Connect team. I may be using the wrong term, but how do we just really expedite and de-risk so we can lower customer adoption risks and lower costs for the end users. So that's our broad goal here, and we look forward to working with you all on those improvements in the future.
Thank you. Thanks for the clarification.
Anyone else from HECO have any further questions? And then I'll move to the consumer advocate. Okay, hearing none. Consumer Advocate's Office, anyone have questions for the DER parties?
Just a clarifying question. Rocky, you were mentioning paying for distribution upgrades. How was that going to be? How was that proposed to be done? I missed that. I'm sorry.
So, I'm sorry we haven't. We'll share more on this. I promise we'll get more info to the parties for discussion. I think we did share something with the parties in our technical discussions. But if we haven't, I will. But what we're talking about is like a risk sharing mechanism where, a lot of times, the concern about quick connect, the concern about quick interconnection is that it's going to cause issues on the grid, right? And it necessitates some kind of upgrade at the feeder level, right? At the grid level. And so this fee would support those types of needs. And what we're talking about is like some kind of upfront fee paid by the installers for interconnection.
Gotcha. Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Any other questions from the consumer advocate?
I think that's all on our end. Thank you, Commissioner.
Okay. All right. So relating to this, Hiko, would you like to present your slide relating to this topic, and then discuss, anything related to that? Andrew, if you could facilitate that.
Sure, happy to do so. Oh, that's great. Thank you. I was just getting worried about how I would share screen, so thank you, Andrew. So we just have 2 slides on this, everyone. Andrew, would you mind advancing? So first, some kind of overall comments we wanted to make. When we first saw that this legislation was, going to happen, It was on our radar, and I appreciate the discussions that we've had so far with the DER parties. They helped me personally understand the impacts of the legislation. We definitely understand the gravity of it to the industry and to customer energy resources and our customers as a whole. We understand the urgency of it, and so we are actively collaborating together, and we want to continue to collaborate together to help solve issues. We are prioritizing right now the near-term process optimizations we can do to help our customers leverage the federal tax credits before they go away by the end of the year. In parallel, and I think this came out in Stephen's answer that he just gave to my question, we know that there are going to be impacts beyond this year that will run into 2026, into 2027. And those issues might need more folks at the table, more stakeholders trying to help solve the problem. And so we want to continue in parallel to collaborate and look for longer term process improvements and make sure all the right stakeholders are at the table, including DPP and also Power Connections, which is another team within Hawaiian Electric that focuses on doing service upgrades. And again, as I mentioned, we acknowledge and appreciate the constructive engagement so far with the DER parties. We want that to continue. Okay, next slide, please.
Actually, Lonnie, I think the next slide is relating to NEM Plus, right? Should we save that for the next? Right now we're just talking about OBBB.
Yes, I just have one more, Commissioner Yost, and then the next slide after that is NEM Plus, and I'll reserve that.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Right. So at our last meeting on July 21st, we, well, I'll back up. So prior to July 21st, we internally met as a team within CER and came up with a list of potential process improvements that we could do. And so we shared that with the DER parties at our meeting on July 21st, and they were open to us implementing them. So the process improvements that I'm about to go through, we have implemented them. We implemented them actually, I think the day after we met, so July 22nd. We understood from the DER parties that there's going to be a rush, as Rocky mentioned, of customers trying to get the tax credits before the end of the year. So what we wanted to focus on, at least for the first couple months or so, is getting those customers conditional approval as quickly as we can. So we have moved a lot of extra resources within our team to focus on completeness review. And that is basically the first step in the interconnection process that our team and CER does. After that, we take the application and we move it over to distribution planning, and they give it an initial technical review. Distribution planning, their timing has been really quick lately. It's been like 1 to 2 days. So really the focus has been on CER and what we can do. And so by tariff, we have 15 business days to do completeness review. We want to bring that down to about 8 to 9 business days. And again, the whole goal is getting the customer able to install their system by the end of the year so they can take advantage of the tax credits. Now, we heard from the industry when we met with them, don't forget, please, about validation and PTO, because that's how the money flows and that's how, they get paid. We understand that as well. And so we are going to kind of stay in communication with them right now, tentatively planning for mid-October to switch the focus from the front end of the process and getting customers ready to build to focusing on validation, execution, the back end of the process, making sure we're wrapping up applications and contractors can get paid and customers are fully closed out. Another thing we committed to doing is to addressing inquiries within 2 business days. We want to make sure that we're being as transparent as possible. I know there's going to be kind of this mad rush for everyone. And so making sure we're giving information as quickly as we can, we hope will be of value to customers and to the industry. And then we will be prioritizing transitioning customers to Smart DER. And so this process, the commission has already approved having our customers on exporting programs. They automatically can go and transition to Smart DER at the 7-year anniversary of their interconnection agreement. However, we're seeing a lot of customers wanting to opt in and do that earlier. So that's really what this process is referring to. We want to make sure if they want to transition and add panels, add a battery, that we are taking care of them and transitioning them as quickly as possible, again, so that they can install this equipment and take advantage of the tax credits by the end of the year. So we have said, if you have a customer in this category that needs to transition, wants to add, equipment, email us at our connect address, and we will be prioritizing those applications and making sure they get approved quickly. And then finally, we want to prepare or hold our next information session with contractors to discuss these process improvements, hear their feedback, take questions. We've been doing this before, and it's kind of due time that we hold another one. So even though we have these improvements, we still want to encourage contractors not to build without conditional approval. And also with respect to the transition process, customers do need to have an AMI before they can be transitioned over to Smart DER. So we've been trying to encourage contractors, please make sure your customer has an AMI. That really saves time for us once we get the form from the customer saying they want to transition. So that's it for my slide. I'm happy to take any questions or comments.
I've got a question to start us off. In terms of the transition to Smart DER, is there any circumstance where someone wouldn't qualify to transition? Has anybody been rejected or had an issue so far?
AMI has been the biggest issue, Commissioner Yost. So it could have been where they opted out of getting AMI before. They try to transition now, and so we have to reach out to them and say, can you please, are you okay with getting an AMI? And I think in most cases they've said yes, but it's usually AMI.
If someone does have AMI, is there any reason they wouldn't be eligible to transition?
In very rare instances, we might have a communications issue. For example, if the customer is in HANA, we've run into some communications issues, but we're working on solving those, and that is kind of an outlier type of instance. In most cases, it's easy for the customer to transition over.
Okay. I guess the reason I'm asking these questions is I wonder if there's a category of people that you could simply automatically allow the transfer somehow, knowing that there's a very low chance or no chance that they're ineligible, just to relieve some of the administrative burden on you during this time, because it's probably going to get a lot worse than we expect it to get. And if that's something that might be beneficial to HECO, I'm throwing it out there.
Thank you. Duly noted, and we can look at it. We're looking at the transition process right now. It's one of our improvement efforts. So we continue to look at how we can make it better.
Okay. Does anyone from PUC staff have questions for either HECO or the DER parties at this point? Okay, I'm not seeing any. DER parties, do you have any questions for HECO? See, Chris DeBone has raised his hand. Chris, go ahead and get off mute and go ahead.
Thank you. I guess as a pointed question to Hawaiian Electric as far as the transition, contractors I believe are starting to triangulate and get customers through, assuming that they're going to get transition, and they have to do that prior to submitting the actual application. They have to transition first to do that. And at first it was like 6 to 8 weeks and all that, right? Scary numbers, which we would have to stop transitioning customers in the next couple of weeks for the rest of the year, if that was the case. Do you know if there's anything in tariff that you would need the Public Utility Commission to look at to make an exception to do any type of expedited transition? And then twofold, is the Public Utility Commission's willing to be able to make that change in an expedient time to do so?
It's a good question, Chris. To my knowledge, I'd have to double check, but to my knowledge, we don't have anything in tariff that gives us deadlines within which to transition customers.
I guess to be more specific, like AMI, is that just, is it really a technical requirement that like we just can't bill if it's there, or is it just because it's in tariff saying that they must have an AMI meter, as an example?
I understand your question better. I believe that requirement is in tariff. Yeah, customers need an AMI to be enrolled in Smart DER.
Yeah, so that may be something to consider. If that's a blocker, we may need all parties, including the Public Utility Commission, to help figure out how to make an exception for that to do what we're looking to do. Yeah.
I should clarify that now that AMI is pretty much fully rolled out within our service territories, I think in most cases the customer has the AMI. It's really in the rarer cases where we have a customer who maybe opted out before and now they need to get one, is when it becomes an issue.
Okay. I guess the last follow-up question, and you mentioned it at the end, Lonnie, that is something you're focusing on right now, and it being the beginning of August, that we need some clarity, or else probably not even accepting customers under this circumstance. And we would just tell the customers, unfortunately, due to the times that we've experienced in the past, if you haven't transitioned, you may not be a good candidate, and move them to the side, which I don't think is a good policy for anybody. Are you confident in that there's going to be a significant increase in the timeline on those?
I would say we're confident, Chris. We are trying our best. We're collecting data on how long it's taking us for all of this, by the way. We're collecting data on how low we're getting completeness reviews. We're collecting data on how quickly we can do transitions. We totally get it that would be a bad situation if you had to put that customer on the side. That wouldn't be fair. So, and based on a couple of emails that I saw just today, we've seen customers get transition within like 2 business days. So I think we're doing much better.
Okay, thanks. That's all. Thanks, everyone.
And just for clarification, I'm seeing in our internal chat that it's our understanding that AMI is installed, at least for Oahu, is around 98% penetration. Is that correct?
Yes, that sounds correct to me.
So this might be, Chris, that issue with AMI specifically might affect a very small number of people. Not to say that's not still significant, but it's a very small number. All right. Any other questions relating to O or other issues that you want to raise now relating to OBBB to the parties? All right. So thanks for that discussion. It was informative, helpful to us. What we appreciate the parties to do now, what we think is the most expeditious way to proceed, is for you to continue speaking informally with each other, see if you can reach consensus on any of these proposals that have been discussed or others that people may feel are appropriate. And to the extent you can come to consensus and to the extent that commission blessing is needed on the approval of those changes, submit that to us jointly as quickly as possible. If you're not able to come to consensus on whatever time frame all of you think is meaningful, right? I mean, we know time is very pressed here, but if you aren't able to reach consensus in a timely manner based on your perception of what's going on, you may file individually. And as we mentioned earlier, when we issue this closure of the existing DER docket, we're going to explain in great detail exactly how to make these non-docketed filings and requests for expedited review by the Commission. So we will be explaining that in detail to everyone. And that order should be coming out early next week. So shouldn't be much delay on that. All right. Next, on to NEM plus modifications. Now we understand you parties have been discussing potential NEM plus tariff amendments to address concerns relating to NEM plus customers who want to expand their systems by adding a battery. We'd like to hear from the parties an update on the status of those discussions. We did receive a slide from HECO that showed in very brief detail it looked like differences between the parties' positions on that issue. So perhaps maybe we could put that slide up, Andrew, if you're okay with it, and then DER parties, if you wouldn't mind reacting to it. I mean, it sort of says what it says on its face, so just let us know if this looks consistent with your understanding of your discussions, and then provide any color you want to provide, and then we'll go back to HECO for further discussion and go on from there.
Thanks, Colin. Yeah, so I think on the issue of the ratio, you know, I think this is where we ended up our last discussion. But one thing that we talked about is we're going back and doing some modeling on use cases, and you know, so we're going to have more we want to talk more with HECO about this, you know what I mean, after we get sort of the results of some of the modeling we're doing, and that should be coming very quickly. You know, obviously we're urgently seeking it out because of the urgency of the situation right now. The one thing is that's come up, you know, we've been doing the modeling and things have been coming up. One of the things that's come up is that it really is, we think it's difficult for the 1-to-2 ratio that HECO has presented here, where, you know, you have 1, you know, kW of PV for 2 kW of storage, basically. We're not sure that that's going to have a sufficient charge to meet the grid service needs, right? Like, so we have concerns that that's not enough generation for storage to be able to have a viable grid service program. And this has come up in the modeling of the typical use cases. And the other thing I'll say that's come up is, you know, originally the NEM plus, our goal, what we wanted for the NEM plus amendments really was to just make it more flexible, to allow industry to provide lower cost products to customers so that they could do NEM plus, you know what I mean, as is. I mean, really what it was about making the NEM plus more efficient than it is. And, you know, at the end of the day, you know, we don't think there's really much difference between, you know, in terms of the export profile, how many kWh exports a system is going to have between old NEM plus and new NEM plus. In some ways, looking at the kWh exports, NEM and NEM plus the old way and NEM plus, you know, with our proposal are the same, right? There's not really a difference. So we're doing a little more thinking on this. Again, just wanted to iterate, that we are, talking with HECO on this. We're open, those green bullet points, we're amenable to all of those. Those aren't like a sticking point. And so thank you for putting them in green, HECO. We agree to those stipulations. We think this is really important to lower costs for customers, to make it more simpler for for NEM plus additions, and ultimately this final goal of enabling NEM customers to participate in grid services in the first place. This will help that. So all that is to say is that we have concerns about the ratio HECO's put out to be viable for a grid service program, and that we're doing more modeling to look at it.
All right, thank you, Rocky. I think that Isaac has his hand raised. Isaac, you want to go ahead?
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, sorry, I had to do like 5 clicks in order to get unmuted there, but I think I'm okay now. All right, I just wanted to clarify a couple things here. First of all, I appreciate Lonnie and Hiko putting this slide together. This is not representing sort of like the pros and cons on either side or whatever, or a clean split in any way. Basically, it boils down to the ratio. And once we can get some kind of agreement on that or not, basically have the commission decide, then we can move this forward, and hopefully we can move this forward sooner than later, because I mean we've been discussing this in some form for I feel for about a year at this point, right, Steve? And then sort of more focused on a more focused basis, maybe a half a year, and then the urgency has just been amped up to the next level, to the max here. Really, to put this in context, this is supposed to be a specific improvement for NEM customers to allow them to participate in grid services, unlock that capability going forward. And I understand the commission is focusing on this because this has been something that even the commission staff has been plugged into the discussions. And so, we've been going round and round. This should be a quick win. And yet we shouldn't be starting, just thinking only about this, as the DER parties emphasize in that list of 5 quick needs in the immediate term. If we're only talking about this is thinking way too small. And so, along those lines, if we can just get this wrapped up, recognizing the urgency and sort of the doomsday scenario that the clean energy market in Hawaii is facing, in a way that I don't know. A lot of you have been around here for a while. I'm not sure I've seen anything this level of dire. And so all the more, I think it calls for some focus here and moving this forward as a quick win. So yeah, it boils down to the ratio here. This potential incremental increase to KWH exports, that's not a DER party's point. We don't think there's going to be an increase. There may be shifting, but this is one of those arm waving type of things that really, if we want to debate this forever, the possibilities are endless, right? This thing about battery will be enrolled in grid services, that's the whole point. And so that aligns with NEM system must remain untouched, battery must be on load following mode. These are all sort of similar concepts. So there's alignment here, and it all comes down to the ratio. I don't know if anyone else on the DR party side wants to close the loop on any of this. Thank you.
Yeah, hey, Stephen Rimsha again. So I haven't been involved in the ongoing discussions with Hawaiian Electric and then the DER parties, but I think what Rocky said on this ratio, yes, it's not a reliable grid service resource, but it's also, from my perspective, a non-viable use case. We're just like wasting all our time with Hawaiian Electric's 1 PV kW to 2 kW battery. It's just a non-starter. No one's going to economically do this. There is no savings at all, which is what we originally started. And yes, we may be able to find a perfect ratio to reduce the impact. But the more I think about this, and I'm not in these calls, but it's like, why is there a ratio? Like there's an economic urgency in getting these systems going. There's going to be a lot of utility scale projects that are never going to come to fruition. All the modeling that's been done, the DER parties have said for a long time, this isn't reasonable. And now you look at the current scenario and none of the forecasting that's been done for the value of DERs viable at all. Like these resources are going to have so much more valuable than is modeled. It's just unrealistic to even force a ratio at this point, because a customer is going to do what's most economic for them. And if there is a problem, Hawaiian Electric has data. bring it back to the commission and say, hey, we have a problem. We need a ratio based on this actual data. We just need this silliness to stop, because we need these resources to be economically upgraded to provide grid service, to provide resiliency. Maybe we can come to an alignment on a ratio, but at this point, I'm just questioning, what is the need? Like, let industry do what they want for the customer based on the most valuable use case, because the current Hawaiian Electric ratio, it is never going to work. No, not a single customer from my perspective would ever enroll in this tariff modification based on this ratio, because they would just design their system to the existing NEM plus design, because it would be more economical for them. And then at that point, where we're not optimizing the systems, we're not really enabling grid service enrollment, which was a primary desire of this. So I just felt I needed to throw that into the mix, that we just really need to move on. There isn't time. If there is a problem, it can be fixed later.
Thank you, Stephen.
Okay, Hiko, any response to any of this at this point? And then I'll turn it over to the consumer advocate.
I'll defer to Bryant if he's on.
Hi, I'm here. Just a question for the DER parties. Has your position changed that the maximum ratio should now be removed?
I don't think so, but that's where the industry. Hey Brian, I haven't been on the meetings, but I mean that was clearly an alternative based on concerns that were raised, and if that's what'll get quick consensus, I think everyone's fine with that. I was just raising the point of, does it even matter? Like we're just spending too much time focusing on this ratio. I think the ratio and battery bonus was quite different, because the NEM systems were exporting additional capacity, but in this case, everything's managed and optimized to the existing capacity. The capacity from the versus NEM Plus is now going to be optimized, and there's going to be less continuous export for the majority of customers. And it's just kind of this back and forth that I struggle with. If what it takes is for a reasonable ratio to ensure export is not increased dramatically, I think the market's going to resolve that on its own due to economics, because customers are not going to be installing that resource. But if we can get this over the finish line with a 2-to-1 ratio and move on and enable some more customers to upgrade their systems this year, sure, absolutely. I was just playing the other angle of this: is, do we even need it? Because in the end, we can fix it if it's wrong. But as far as I know, the 2-for-1 ratio by the DER parties is still acceptable to move forward with. I wasn't saying that changed, but I was just questioning, what's the point? Like it's going to correct itself. So let's move on. If it's 2-to-1 as the DER parties have proposed, that's been used in the past, great. Let's stipulate, finish up the little bit of language in the red line tariff and file it next week.
If I may just sort of summarize for 10 more seconds for the benefit of those who are dropping in to this discussion uninitiated. Basically, what Stephen's talking about is a proposal to modernize the former NEM Plus, or the previous NEM Plus program, by installing controls above all of it at the point of interconnection. And that will control your ability, for these concerns about over exporting or whatever, because it will be controlling the amount of exports and also enabling that grid support by unlocking that ability for NEM customers to engage in these type of programs. So that's what we're talking about here for all those who are joining the program for the first time. Thank you.
So I wanted to address a couple
Go
points.
ahead. Sorry, someone else speaking?
Yeah, this is Brian. Sorry, I wanted to address a couple more points in response to Steve. I don't believe fundamentally in responding to problems after they've been created, especially programmatic ones, because they can be kind of difficult to untangle and the damage can already be done, and I would like to avoid that if possible. But that's just general philosophy. And commenting on the need of the ratio, the concern I brought up regarding the 2-to-1 PV to battery ratio is that in my preliminary modeling for this, there's going to be a lot more PV than the battery can charge to. So you're going to have a lot of extra PV that may not have anywhere to go. And I don't want the customer on the receiving end to have a lot of curtailed PV because of that.
I've got a question about that. Then, in terms of the what would happen if there was excess PV, would that, as things used to work, would that go back to serve home load if home load existed? Or could a customer decide, for example, to charge their electric vehicle at that time or run their air conditioner or what have you, rather than curtail? It would sort of be a customer's choice.
Yeah, our understanding of the proposal is that it can serve customer loads and it can also export to the grid up to the limit of the original NEM system. And then at that point, it would be curtailed.
Okay. I mean, just speaking, as a PV customer myself, all of this is very visible to customers on their battery app. They can see exactly what's happening. So if there was curtailment, they could decide to make other choices. But also, I mean, I think the existence of a 2-to-1 ratio, it wouldn't mean that that's what you have to do, right? It would be, you could build up to that limit.
Correct.
Okay. Okay, a lot of this stuff is, we can't get bogged down in too many of the weeds here. I would encourage the parties to keep talking about this, but I want to open it up to the consumer advocate. Any questions from the consumer advocate on these issues?
No questions at this time. It'd just be helpful to see the use cases. Then we can start to, I think, talk around that. That would be helpful. Thanks.
Great. How about questions from PUC staff or other commissioners? All right. Well, thank you, everyone, for bringing us up to speed on the status of these things. If there can be quick agreement reached and the agreement will result in something helpful to consumers in this tumultuous time, then obviously that would be a good thing. But we encourage you to keep talking amongst yourselves, and to the extent that you're not able to reach agreement and you want the commission to be involved in figuring out a solution, then there will be a process for you to seek relief from us. Again, either jointly or separately. And we're going to make that clear as part of the order closing the existing docket. So I'm not sure if I know that Leo has been kind of in and out of this conference, as he's been able to join based on his participation in the DCCA disaster preparedness tabletop proceeding. I don't know if Leo's on right now, but Leo or Naomi, do you have anything else to add or mention relating to these topics we've been discussing?
Thank you, Commissioner Yost. Parties, thank you for your frank discussion on a lot of these issues. I heard a couple of times where you basically felt that there was not going to be any more, I guess. It came down to basically one issue, and you didn't think it was going to further discussion amongst the parties were going to resolve that issue. Then I would encourage you folks to communicate that to the commission so that we can resolve this as quickly as possible. I agree that some of these issues are timely, and I'm the type that wants immediate resolution on a lot of things, supported by a strong record. So to the extent that there's one unresolved issue, I would expect complete briefings on that particular one issue with a note that you have resolved all the other issues related to that docket. But thank you so much for your hard work. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Commissioner Kwai. Chair Asuncion, are you on the call? Do you have anything you want to say? All right. I don't think that Chair Assumption is on the call, or if he is, he may not be able to talk. He's having to deal with his priority task today. That the only other thing I'd like to say is really just to repeat myself and reemphasize, the Commission's interest in addressing the things that are most urgent, creating processes whereby the parties will be able to address those matters, and we are moving away from the general investigatory nature of the ongoing, longstanding docket and getting into much more focused proceedings whereby we can seek to implement changes that need to be made. And those would be things, as we said, consistent with Act 266, consistent with the Commission's inclinations and executive order from the governor. So, we are serious about continuing to watch these matters closely, to make decisions that benefit people of Hawaii and that advance, more renewable energy as quickly as we can. And we're well aware of the threats and the problems caused by the abrupt shift in federal policy. So we really appreciate everyone's attention and work on this. As Commissioner Kauai said, we will be issuing an order soon, providing additional guidance. And this concludes the status conference for docket number 2019-0323. We thank you very much for your attendance and your participation today. Thanks, everybody.